You know, lately on online, I've been sharing my thoughts about how, to me, it's real apparent how everything is just really orchestrated and manipulated by folks who own things, in particular the media, and how that keeps the tone. If you know what I'm saying by the tone, how it keeps the mood of the country and the overall conversation, how it's what it has it focused on, which is politics. And I just, I'm always trying to put my thoughts together as how to express what it is I see and just put it out there, because it just seems like there are a lot of people who are not seeing this. How, for one thing, the great majority of wealth, as we know, is owned by a very small percentage of people. That small number of people, among other things, own all the media. Quite a while ago, media was conglomerated and basically monopolized, so that there's really just a few companies, corporations that control the mainstream media. And it just seems it just enrages me, frankly, how it seems to escape the average person that a big part of what's happening in the mainstream media and their constant focus on politics is that it's strictly for profit. You know, it's like it's known by people who are, it's known, if you look at things in history and what's going on, that the two-party system is ineffective and broken, and the idea that we can turn it around in a realistic way through the vote is just a far cry from, you know, what can really happen and turn things around. Just don't, you know, and it just really pains me when I look at how the mainstream media, because again, they're all paid. The talking heads, the news reporters, the talk shows, those folks are paid, and so they don't cross certain lines. And the thing that I don't hear is a message or a concern where people who have a platform, a public platform through the mainstream media, no one's talking about ways of unifying. People are making money by dissecting and overanalyzing the division. And, well, is it this? Is it that? Could it be this? Is that the effect? Is that the effect? When, in fact, the effects are obvious to anyone who is, well, that's the way it looks to me, from my perspective, where I don't have anything to benefit from hoodwinking people and trying to fool them about what's going on. I say it's obvious that the current, especially my country, America, but the world really, the political climate based on economics is straight out of control, because the game is working for those who are winning, and those who are winning at just a very small pocket. And it's like they just are able to manipulate, and large numbers of people will believe anything, you know. And it is based upon how you were raised, where you're raised, your social background, your social standing, your economics, your ethnicity. All this plays in. And yet, ultimately, we all need and want the same things. I just think it's unfortunate that in my lifetime I'm at a point now where, to me, it's very obvious that what is needed is for wise, mature people in leadership positions to start speaking up about real efforts to try to break through this lose-lose game of power grab that is non-stop. Now, again, I know there are many folks who can disagree with what I say or will claim to have information that says, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm not claiming to be an expert at anything. I'm just telling you how it looks from my end. It looks to me like this is really what's going on for a lot of people. And I just think it's important to try and share the idea, the thought that, in fact, it's time for those of us that see it and feel it to try and share it. The idea that, well, we really see through the manipulation, the fomented division going on. It's like we're in this together, and yet the people who have the most to benefit from the division, the 1/10 of 1%, they just stir it up and just making money, off of our I don't know what you want to call it, you know what I'm saying? One of the other things about, because I am connected to the world through the media like everyone else, besides listening to music, I do try and watch what's going on. It's just that I don't see, I lose my words. I can see it, and then it's like it's so hard to describe what it is. Yes, that we'll see these specials and these documentaries and these programs about problems and despair and misery and war and bad water and all these problems, and yet all that's being discussed and shown is the misery, not real problem solving, which ultimately ends up being that it's the 1/10 of 1/10% making more money off of feeding us our own misery back to us as entertainment, as infotainment. It just needs to be said, because many people beyond me, even though we're able to live and survive and enjoy life to a degree, it's maddening the psychic tone of the world today. It is so unwell. And even though that's just the way it is, and we have to deal with it, the least I can do is say something. If nothing else, I say it for my own sanity. To say to myself, well, I see this, and it's like, this ain't cool. Recently on Facebook, some woman I don't know made a post about, well, the whole country was set up so that the landowners and the bank owners or whoever had power would be in positions of would be the beneficiaries of the laws and the way everything is set up. So why is anyone surprised at where we're at nowadays with, in particularly, the heinous Republicans? I will say it, even though I know that Republicans and Democrats, there's really no difference behind the scenes, but the Republicans are just out for the naked power grab, and that somehow, and because this is the way it's set up, that's okay. No, it's not okay. It's wrong. It's wrong, and the other thing that I want to say is it's unfortunate, in my mind, that so-called smart people who are really smart about acquiring power and hoodwinking and fooling and taking advantage of people can't see the long view, that in fact that their own actions are dismantling everything that they stand on too. That their insistence on having it now and partying now really diminishes their children's and their children's children's options for a good life in the future. Supposedly, this is one of the things that maturity was supposed to bring us, is a long view, and where we are able to think of others as well as of ourselves. Think in a community sense, where I have a responsibility to myself, but I do also have a responsibility to my community at larger. That's really being manipulated and messed with for agendas by people, as opposed to a message and a real concern for unity being broadcast. Just wanted to try and express these thoughts I've been struggling with, and I'll still struggle with. How do I really express what it is that concerns me about the way the world is, you know? And then there's always people who will say, well, it's always been dark, it's always been messed up. Well, I know that, but that doesn't mean that I should just say, okay, well, I'll be quiet and just take it in the ass quietly. No. I think I'm also not fooling myself by knowing that I'm not the only one who benefits from hearing people talk like this. I don't hear enough people talking like this, where there's a real concern on a human level, even though the world is so huge and we can't really take care of one another, but we can live in a way that's more beneficial to more people. And that is not what's going on, and I'm not accepting any spin from people who want to say that somehow the way that things are going is justifiable, or that somehow it's good, or that somehow we're making America great again, or that, oh, haven't you heard the economy's great? Oh, I've heard that, all right, but for who? That's the last part. It's like, you know, one of the things that I learned in my mental health schooling was the whole idea of thinking it through, you know, consequences, you know. It's like many things are desire-based in man's behavior. We want something, so we do something to get it. And yet, again, experience and maturity supposedly can teach one that depending on what it is you want and what you get, you may learn that your short-term desire may lead to long-term suffering. Or, you know what I'm saying? It's like, think it through. You know, it's one of the things that, having gone through serious drug problems with multi-substance abuse, cocaine mainly, and getting off of it, that was really one of the things that just made so much sense, that helped me to get a hold of my behavior, which is, well, think it through. You know, A leads to B, leads to C, and C never changes when you do A and B regarding certain behaviors. And just use that logic and that common sense and just put it in any situation and think it through, look it through, you know. We just wish that these greedy politicians and world leaders could just think it through. You know, you're so busy amassing mass wealth and draining the planet of resources. They could still be alive when, I mean, it's happening as we speak. You know, it's not on such a massive scale that it's, you can deny it or not, you can not know it, and yet the effects of mine and other people's concerns about climate change and the imbalance of how we're using resources, the effects are already obvious. So, okay. This is one of those videos where I haven't talked about music. I'm not going to talk about it. I think I'm going to upload it, but I'll think about it before I do, because I do want to share these thoughts, but it's not that I want to get a whole lot of debate and discussion going on. I mean, if people want to share their thoughts, that's cool, but I cannot see where I've said anything that would justify any sort of caustic or, I'll use this word, snarky response in the comments. I've said nothing to ask for or to try and trigger something negative in anyone. I'm just sharing, trying to voice my concerns as clearly as I can. One last thing. There's this whole thing about idealism and what I'm basically where I'm coming from, you know, still clinging to idealistic values is just a sign of immaturity. You know, that it's a thing that, you know, you do when you're a teenager, and when you grow up, you see reality. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not a teenager. I am grown up. And I see this, and I'm still based in those values. And my question to people who tell me that being grown up is to put that stuff aside, it's like, who told you that shit? Look at where it's got us. If we had held on to trying to do things well for the greater good, sure wouldn't be I'm certain that so much of the world would not be so fucked up as it is now. Just some observations I want to share.